Hello, boys and girls. Today we're going to be reading Make Way for Ducklings by Robert McCloskey. This book does not have an illustrator. An illustrator is the person who draws the pictures. It doesn't have an illustrator, just the author, which is the person that writes the books. Right here we have our cover page with our title and our author. Then we have the spine that holds our book together. And then we have the back page. Ready? I chose this book because it's called Make Way for Ducklings. Now, in the town that I live in Fort Myers, there's ducklings all over the floor. There's ducklings with their mamas, and they follow them on the road, so cars have to stop to make sure that they don't hit them. So I see ducklings all the time, and we always make way for them so that they don't get hurt, and they can be with their families. So based on the title, what do you think this book is going to be about? It looks like a mama and some babies, but what do you think is going to be about? What do you think is going to happen? I'll let you think about it, okay? Let's read. Make Way for Ducklings by Robert McCloskey. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were looking for a place to live, but every time Mr. Mallard saw what looked like a nice place, Mrs. Mallard said it was no good. There were sure to be foxes in the woods or turtles in the water, and she was not going to raise a family where there might be foxes or turtles. So they flew on and on. Now, why do you think Mr. and Mrs. Mallard don't want to be near foxes or turtles with her family? Why do you think so? I think because maybe turtles and foxes eat ducks as their meals, and she doesn't want to put her family in harm's way. Let's see. When they got to Boston, they felt too tired to fly any further. There was a nice pond in the public garden with a little island on it. The very place to spend the night, quacked Mr. Mallard. So down they flapped. Let's see. Next morning, they fished for their breakfast in the mud at the bottom of the pond, but they didn't find much. What do you think ducks eat? What do they eat for breakfast? What are your predictions, or what do you think? Just as they were getting ready to start on their way, a strange, enormous bird came by. It was pushing a boat full of people, and there was a man sitting on its back. "Good morning," quacked Mr. Mallard, being polite. The big bird was too proud to answer. But the people on the boat threw peanuts into the water, so the Mallards followed them all around the pond and got another breakfast, better than the first. When you see ducks, you can see them near ponds, on the road, near your house. Do you ever try to feed them? I do. I try to give them peanuts if I see it, or I try to give them some lettuce. I always try to feed them, even though they scare me a little bit. "I like this place," said Mrs. Mallard as they climbed out on the bank and waddled along. "Why don't we build a nest and raise our ducklings right in this pond? There are no foxes and no turtles, and the people feed us peanuts. What could be better?" "Good," said Mr. Mallard, delighted that at last Mrs. Mallard had found a place that suited her. "But what do you think is going to happen?" Why did they say but? What is going to be so wrong about this pond that they can't live there? What do you think? "Look out!" Mrs. Mallard yelled. "You'll get run over." And when she got her breath, she added, "This is no place for babies. With all those horrid things rushing about, we'll have to look somewhere else." So it looks like she doesn't want to be here because there's a lot of bikes and her family could get hurt, or cars. It's a busy place. So they flew over Beacon Hill and round the State House, but there was no place there. Where do you predict that the duck is going to raise her family at? If you could tell me a place or a name, or maybe just a pond, where do you think she's going to have her family? They looked in Louisburg Square, but there was no water to swim in. They can't live somewhere where there's no water because that's what they need to live. That's where they find their food. Then they flew over the Charles River. This is better, quacked Mr. Mallard. That island looks like a nice, quiet place, and it's only a little way from the public garden. Yes, said Miss Mallard, remembering the peanuts. That looks just like the right place to hatch ducklings. Do you think this is going to be the place where they live and raise their family? Let's see. So they chose a cozy spot among the bushes near the water and settled down to build their nest. And only just in time, for now they were beginning to molt. All their old wing feathers started to drop out, and they would not be able to fly again until the new ones grew in. So molt means when they lose their feathers and they grow new ones. How long do you think it's going to be until they grow new ones, though? But of course, they could swim, and one day they swam over to the park on the riverbank, and there they met a policeman called Michael. Michael fed them peanuts, and after that the mallards called on Michael every day. So Michael was feeding them peanuts all the time, so that's where they got their breakfast. After Mrs. Mallard had laid 8 eggs in the nest, she couldn't go to visit Michael anymore because she had to sit on the eggs to keep them warm. She moved off the nest only to get a drink of water or to have her lunch or to count the eggs and make sure they were all there. So she just had her baby, so that means she has to protect them. She has to make sure nothing happens to them and they're safe and protected. One day the ducklings hatched out. First came Jack, then came Cack, then came Lack, then Mack and Knack and Oack and Pack and Quack. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were bursting with pride. It was a great responsibility taking care of so many ducklings, and it kept them very busy. That was a lot of ducklings. One day, Mr. Mallard decided he'd like to take a trip to see what the rest of the river was like further on. So off he set. I'll meet you in a week in the public garden. He quacked over his shoulder. Take good care of the ducklings. Don't you worry, said Mrs. Mallard. I know all about bringing up children. And she did. So this mama duck is raising all these little ducklings. Do you have any siblings? Any brothers or sisters? Do you have 8, as many as the ducklings? That's a lot of brothers and sisters. She taught them how to swim and dive. She taught them to walk in a line, to come when they were called, and to keep a safe distance from bikes and scooters and other things with wheels. Now, in my neighborhood, I always see mama ducks, and they always have a little line of ducklings following them. It's like they know they have to listen to their mom, and they walk in a straight line. Have you ever seen a mama duck with a bunch of ducklings following behind her? It's the cutest thing ever. When at last she felt perfectly satisfied with them, she said one morning, Come along, children, follow me. Before you could wink an eyelash, Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Awk, and Pack, and Quack fell into line just as they had been taught. Mrs. Mallard led the way into the water, and they swam behind her to the opposite bank. Where do you think Mr. Mallard is? He said he was going to be gone for a week, so where do you think that he went? What are some places? There they waddled ashore and waddled along till they came to the highway. Oh no, so they're approaching a highway. A highway is where cars go, and it's a busy, busy road. They go pretty fast on a highway most of the time. So what do you think is going to happen to these ducks now that they're coming up to a highway? Is something good going to happen? Is something bad going to happen? What do you think? Mrs. Mallard stepped out to the crossroad. Honk, honk, went the horns on the speeding cars. Quack, went Mrs. Mallard as she tumbled it back again. Quack, 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 went Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Awk, Pack, and Quack, just as loud as their little quackers could quack. The cars kept speeding by and honking, and Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings kept right on quack, quack, quacking. Do you think they were hit, or they were just quacking to let the people know that they were in the middle of the road? I don't know. It doesn't look like any of them are hurt, but they're just quacking to let them know. They made such a noise that Michael came running, waving his arms and blowing his whistle. Tweet, tweet! It looks like he's trying to get them to stop driving so that they don't hit the mama duck and her babies. He planted himself in the center of the road, raised one hand to stop the traffic, and then beckoned with the other, the way policemen do, for Mrs. Mallard to cross over. So he stopped all that traffic so that Mama Duck and her ducklings can cross the road without getting hit. That was so nice of Michael. Do you think you would do something like that for ducks? I think I would. I wouldn't want them to get hit, so I would protect them. As soon as Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings were safe on the other side and on their way down Mount Vernon Street, Michael rushed back to his police booth. Why do you think he's rushing back to the police booth? He's in such a hurry. He called Clancy at the headquarters and said, "There's a family of ducks walking down the street." Clancy said, "Family of what?" "Ducks," yelled Michael. "Send a police car, quick!" Oh no, it's a busy highway. The policeman's calling so he can get help. What do you think the police car is going to do once they get to the ducks? Are they going to put all the ducks in the police car? Are they going to just move them to a different place? What do you think is going to happen? Meanwhile, Mrs. Mallard had reached the corner book shop and turned into Charles Street with Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Ack, Pack, and Quack all marching in line behind her. She's just wandering the streets, but is that safe for her to be near such a busy road? I don't know. I don't think it's safe. What do you think is going to happen? So she's marching along with all her babies. There's a police car on the way to maybe save these ducklings. But what's going to happen? How is this book going to end? What do you predict? Everyone stared. An old lady from Beacon Hill said, "Isn't it amazing?" And the man who swept the street said, "Well, now, ain't that nice?" And when Mrs. Mallard heard them, she was so proud she tipped her nose in the air and walked along with an extra swing in her waddle. They were impressed to see a line of ducklings following their mom. They thought that was so cool. When they came to the corner of Beacon Street, there was the police car with 4 policemen that Clancy had sent from headquarters. The policemen held back the traffic so Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings could march across the street. So look, they're all stopping the traffic so that the ducks can pass. What's going to happen? I think he might take them all in his police car and take them to a safe place, maybe near a pond. Let's see. Right on into the public garden. I remember Mr. Mallard was supposed to meet Mrs. Mallard here a week later at the public garden, but has it been that long? I don't know. Inside the gate, they all turned round to say thank you to the policeman. The policeman smiled and waved goodbye. Ooh, look at how big her ducklings are getting already. There's Mama Duck before they were so little, and look how big they're getting. When they reached the pond and swam across to the little island, there was Mr. Mallard waiting for them, just as he promised. So Mr. Mallard was gone for a week. So what do you think he was doing during that time gone? Do you think he found them a new place to live? Do you think he didn't find a new place? What was he doing? Do you think the baby ducklings and Mama Duck are going to be happy that they finally see their dad? Let's see. The ducklings liked the new island so much that they decided to live there. All day long they follow the swan boats. They follow the swan boats and eat peanuts. So they're living the life. They love peanuts. They're living on this little island where they get to be fed peanuts. They follow boats. And it looks like it's a pretty big pond. And when night falls, they swim to their little island and go to sleep. Do you think that Mr. and Mrs. Mallard and their ducklings are happy with the island that they found? I think so. Did you predict that they were going to stay at the public garden? I didn't think so. I thought Mr. Mallard was going to go search somewhere and then come back and tell them a whole different place. The end. I really, really enjoyed this book. Did you like this book? I think it shows exactly what ducks and their ducklings go through. They constantly have to be safe. There's always traffic, and they can land in a pond, but when they wander off, they can get further away. And we have to be careful with them because there is a lot of cars and bikes, and we have to be safe. And I really like this book because they ended up finding the perfect place to live that was safe for them, that had peanuts that they could eat all the time for breakfast, and the ducklings can have a lot of fun. What did you like about this story? And who was your favorite character? I think Mrs. Mallard was my favorite character because she was so protective over her babies, and she did everything she could to make sure that they were safe. I really liked Mrs. Mallard. I think she's my favorite character. What about you?